This is Archaeodeath, an exploration in the archaeology of death and memory, past and present, with Professor Howard Williams.
Archaeodeathlings, it's Archaeology Professor Howard Williams here, and in this talk I want to review my Theoretical Archaeology Group 45th annual meeting presentation in a session I co-organised with doctoral researcher Ellie Chambers. If you want to learn more about the session, on my blog Archaeodeath you can see a review of the session and its success in relation to the rest of the conference. There is also all of the digital presentations and the slides of the in-person presentations can be found in an earlier post together with the abstract for the session, and we are going to be conducting follow-up workshops which I'll be sharing here on Archaeodeath, taking new perspectives forward and identifying new directions for research. Now, my talk was called TikTok Archaeodeath, and in it I reviewed my work on social media over the last 12 years. Starting off with my WordPress blog, which has been going since June 2013. At the time of the presentation there was 1,853 posts and over 1.25 million hits, with topics addressed from site visits to heritage sites and monuments, historic buildings, museums, churchyards and churches, and so on, as well as reflections on the popular culture and politics of death in today's world, and also aspects of my ongoing research. In addition to that, during the lockdown I started a YouTube channel, which is what you're listening to this on, from April 2020, which at the time of my presentation last month had 265 videos, 2.2 thousand subscribers, and a modest 54.9 thousand views. Of course, that's increased in the last couple of months. And of course, my TikTok, which has been much more successful in terms of overall viewership. At the time I was discussing this, it had 134.5 thousand followers, 2.7 million likes, and this is an audio-visual exploration of sites, monuments and landscapes of death and memory, synopsising and critiquing new archaeological discoveries and research, responding to questions from the public about archaeology and heritage, and explicitly combating pseudo-archaeological misinformation and disinformation. And a further dimension is critiquing heritage and archaeology in popular culture and political discourses. Now, at that time, I shared my stats for TikTok, which has been much more successful, heavily US biased. Almost half my followers are in the US, and therefore the impending TikTok ban at the present and the temporary ban that took place, had been set to rob me of half my followers. But still, I would still have a substantial global following if that did take place, regardless. But still, it's a fundamental issue. But also a viewership from around the world, 21%, the UK 14.4, Canada 5.1, and Australia 3.2. Now, gender isn't a binary, but that's the only stats that TikTok was willing to tell me about, and it says 42% male as a gender, which of course male is a biological sex, but gender would be a man, I guess. These are, it doesn't, and also female as a gender is 58%, but I don't really think we can put too much weight on that. And my approach has been to create a mixture of entertainment, engagement and education for the archaeology and heritage of death and memory, exploring theories and themes, methods and techniques, case studies, and to showcase some new discoveries and analyses. There's discussions of ethics, politics and popular culture, how these disciplines are received and integrated into popular culture. I've always tried to advocate what you could call death positivity, but without the outrage or sensationalism that often is deployed to exploit viewership through engaging with mortuary topics. I try to promote but also critique political activism for archaeology and heritage in a way that I think is robust and responsible. And I critique academic institutions, authorities and orthodoxies, both calling out and calling in other creators for misuses and abuses of archaeology and heritage, both the theories and the methods, as well as the data, as part of my content. Here's just to showcase some of me looking serious and in various videos on a range of subjects, from going to heritage sites and monuments, reflecting on the content of other creators, presenting new research and debating contemporary academic as well as popular culture and political issues where it intersects with my research. Now, this TikTok short form video content has been different from my long form YouTube and from my WordPress, which have been relatively low key. It's obviously a higher volume of viewership and interactions, and there's a range of positives and negatives that I personally identify as part of the mix of the blessings and the curses of relative popularity on TikTok. There's a degree of the positives first I want to review. The connectivity that's possible between TikTok and other ongoing research scholarship and other social media is key. So I'm able to, through my link tree, if not through direct other means, to link to YouTube, to link to WordPress, to link to my publications, so people can follow up and connect up different venues to suit them. I think that's a very positive thing about TikTok, although I wish the connectivity was better and I could actually put direct links to videos. They do sort of continue to control that, and video and links to academic citations would be ideal, but at least there's the basics there. And of course, TikTok is giving me a global outreach and engagement with new audiences across cultures and societies, from New Zealand to Alaska, and giving me that access to and dialogue with other creators, and in my field of research in archaeology, but also anthropology, history, sociology, geography, and so on, as well as people who have academic backgrounds but are working in professional roles outside of academia, as well as people with amateur interests and enthusiasms for aspects of the archaeology and heritage of death and memory. I feel it's been effective in community building in the very specific sense of not just a group of mates who share views on any particular issue, but in community building for education for both academic and non-academic audiences in a fashion I haven't seen happen effectively or meaningfully on any other social media account, beyond a cabal of echo chambers within particular fields and subfields. I think there's a much more healthy, open, but growing and clear sense of community on TikTok than anywhere else I've seen, and that's a positive. And I believe that TikTok is able to show a demonstrable, strategic, impactful activism where mortuary archaeology meets the world, and that is where, and the digital realm is where mortuary archaeology meets the world more than anywhere else nowadays. While museums and while publications and while open days on fieldwork can be important ways people get access to the ideas, the theories, the methods, the techniques, the practices of mortuary archaeology, school sessions and public talks. There's so many different ways. I feel it's this online media that's really reaching people in an impactful and meaningful way, and allowing us to not only talk about the past, but shed light on the significance of the themes we study in the past for the present, but also how our materials and our narratives are used and misused and integral into that present day world. And I think there are opportunities for speaking up and a need and a strategy for shutting up. I can't address everything, and I've tried to be very selective about what I do address. But when I do, and if that is part of the mix, then I can be effective in speaking up on issues that might seem controversial, but where I can give an academic and perspective and a sourced view and opinion and informed, knowledgeable insight into a contemporary topic. Now, the negatives are also an integral part of the mix of TikTok use alongside other social media. It requires constant daily commitment to engage with comments, stitches and duets. I don't have to do it every day, but I think if I'm doing this, it needs to be on the regular, it needs to be kept up, and it should be interactive, not simply just posting and ignoring the comments. Therefore, it requires regular vigilance, requiring ethical and uses and misuses regarding the archaeological dead and the discipline, to be able to respond reasonably swiftly when there's an issue or a contention where that affects my field of expertise. That it does mean I'm exposed to low-level abuse and defamation, both from within and outside the academy, for doing this. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but some people are actively objecting to this kind of online education, engagement and activism regarding the themes that matter about my research, the meanings of our relationships, the significance of our connections between the living and the dead, in the distant past, in the recent past, and in the present, and in the future. There are also, following on from abuse and defamation, there is the threat and the actual reality of occasional complaints and threats to my physical person and to my employment from within and outside the academy. And this is nothing new to TikTok, but it's something that can be exacerbated in that short form video medium. People feel more entitled to criticise and complain about TikTok than anything else I do. There are costs and technical issues, of course. I have to have a phone, I have to use that phone, I have to manage the data on that phone. There are technical issues. I don't have the really much money to invest in speakers and other gizmos, lighting, and I have to do this all on my own without anybody supporting me. So there are technical costs and issues there. The time it takes to upload and edit is fiddly on a phone. There's lots of those kind of issues, and all of this is labour that's not really paid or not really credited as part of my job, although I do see public engagement and outreach as an integral part of my role as a professor at a public university, and I do not object to it being not given specific and singular credit. I think it is important to recognise this is work and stress and intellectual engagement, labour that's both time and energy, but also intellect, that is not credited in the same way as my publications are or my other work is. And it must be said, this is true of many academics, despite there being a tide of academics trying to gloss over this issue and claim they're getting support which they're not, which I would challenge. And I've seen many academics say, "Oh, I get so much support," when they don't. I know they don't. And it's nothing about me and a criticism of my institution. This is a broader systemic, sector-wide issue. The limited understanding and institutional support, and the academic double standards that people say, "Oh, it's a good thing," but they just don't want to do it, or they don't want to support it, or they don't want to recognise it. So the question is, where do I go next with Archaeodeath more broadly and with TikTok specifically? I think there's considerable potential for more of the same and new directions, and I must say I've tried to play with RedNote. I'm not sure I'll be staying on that app. I've also expanded to Patreon, where I'll be doing some broader syntheses of my WordPress, YouTube and my TikTok content, and reflections on issues that I don't think are worth appearing in those other fields. So I've set up a Patreon now. I'm on other social media, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Mastodon and Blue Sky. I've still kept my X account, but I'm not going to post on it, but I'm keeping it as a holder to direct people elsewhere. But I think there's considerable potential for more of the same and new directions as social media evolves. But TikTok is is this generation. What's coming next, I don't know, but I think there's considerable potential. The question is, should I go on, and what should I do if I do? And I'm always responsive to feedback and guidance and thoughts on directions. I think I have been successful, but equally I've pulled back from obvious success routes that I could go down to avoid sensationalism, compromising my ethical standards, investing more time and energies than I can afford to dispense. And so there's always a limitation, and the question is, what should I focus on, what should I prioritise? And the question also is, what can I do more effectively or strategically? There are some posts, many of my posts don't go very far, but some of them go quite a long way. I don't want to constantly court controversy, and I think the number of posts that go viral is enough. I don't want daily viral videos because it would be out of control. But there still is a question of how do I curate. I do actively curate my comment section. I actively curate my dialogue so that it's educational. There's as little hate as possible while allowing for a spectrum of opinions. But are there ways I can more effectively engage with audiences and support communities? And of course, there's the bigger question of I've got so many other things to do: my teaching, my admin, my research, my scholarship. Should I bother? And I would be interested to see what people think, because I'm never going to be a Dan Snow or an Alice Roberts with that kind of audience. What I'm doing is much more niche. Is there a merit to this kind of niche work? If so, should I be doing things that are different? And if not, then what should I be doing instead? And a reminder, you can find out more about this topic via my WordPress blog and the Mortuary Means Advances in the Digital Public Archaeology of Death session, which I co-organised with doctoral researcher Ellie Chambers. You're welcome.
Follow Archaeodeath on YouTube, TikTok, WordPress, and a host of other social media.